People often talk about how assistive technology and data are transforming the care sector. But what does this mean? And what will the implications be? Analysing data and identifying trends will be crucial to developing optimum standards of care. But this is just the beginning. To learn more about this subject, I've recently spoken to Kreshnik Hoti from PainChek. My name's Simon Parker, and this is the Care Leaders Network podcast. So here goes, how assistive technology, data and analytics are transforming the care sector. So Kreshnik, can you talk to me a little bit around why data and analytics are so important in the care sector?
Well, thanks, Simon. That's a very good question. First of all, it is very difficult to deliver change in the care sector and accomplish that much needed transformation of care without basically embracing this digital era or digital evolution that we currently have in the sector. In this aspect, at the center of this, obviously, revolution is the opportunity provided by data-driven technologies and potential that they have to solve various issues in the sector. I think this is critical. And obviously, we need to recognize that this sector has its characteristics. For example, it has more fragmented landscape of providers and commissioners. Many organizations still collect data manually. Often this data is unretrievable. And we also know that this sector historically had fewer technical experts to draw on, which makes this more challenging for adoption. And also it has, in general, an overstretched workforce. So we are sort of operating in this context, we are operating in this sort of environment. But the good news is that things are changing and there are more providers adopting these digital solutions, appointing technical teams to support this digital transformation. And also we are going through a very, I think, exciting period where data is becoming more visible. And as it becomes more visible, you can clearly see the value of using that data at different levels of care. In this context, it's also worth noting a recent policy paper published in June 2022 by Department of Health and Social Care titled Data Save Lives, Reshaping Health and Social Care with Data. So this tells us a lot. This is a very important paper which recognizes the value of data-driven approach in social care, basically. So I think this encapsulates the very importance of why data and data analytics is so important currently in the care sector.
It's amazing, isn't it? How I was having this conversation earlier on today, how the social care world seems, broadly speaking, that there's a massive uptick of care providers thinking about technology. We're undergoing somewhat of a digital revolution, as you put it earlier, which is very, very exciting. And the opportunities that will be presented as a result of this digital revolution should be absolutely fantastic. It's how do you then extract all of that data? How do you make it meaningful? And how do you make ensure that data is valuable when it comes to improving the lives of people living in care services, and then also the teams and the leadership teams as well. And it's so multifaceted and such a broad subject. But I think broadly speaking, data, there was a few years ago, data became more valuable than oil. And there's a reason for that, because with that data becomes insight, and potentially even in the future foresight as well, when it comes to doing kind of predictive type analytics, which may be one of the subjects that we'll get onto today. But thanks very much for answering that particular question around the importance of data and analytics. Talk to me a little bit about the specific advantage gained from adopting a data-driven approach when it comes to care.
Well, Simon, as you say, with great data comes great power and great responsibility as well. I think this is something that we need to recognize. But I think it's very important we adopt a data-driven approach to address some of the issues that the sector is currently facing. In this context, it's worth mentioning that social care currently has high amounts of data, but unfortunately, in many cases, this data is largely inconsistent. As such, it is also difficult to use that data currently to address various issues that the sector is facing, including issues related to overstretched workforce, for example, and how do we use this data for addressing various health inequalities. So in a current environment, it's difficult, but this is progress, and so there's inroads that are being made in this. Firstly, adopting a data-driven approach allows collection and analysis of very valuable data, which allows then care providers to gain insights into various care patterns and trends within their organizations. They can use this information to better address their needs and improve so the needs of their as a provider, but also needs of their residents, for example, and improve their services. This can lead to really a number of advantages. Firstly, we have the advantage of improving individual care and personalization of that care, which for many conditions, for many health conditions, this is very critical, Simon. Ultimately, what people want is care that basically responds to their individual needs. And this can be enabled by a data-driven approach. Data-driven approach can generate that critical information, which then allows for providers to customize care according to their residents or their patients' individual needs. This is very important. So we are at this critical step where we are fully unlocking this possibility. Also, it's important to recognize that by leveraging data analytics, providers are also in a position to see and know what works better for most people that they are looking after. This is also very important. This can foster that sense of universality and address health inequalities by basically offering individuals what we know works best for most people. So they have a right on accessing that care that works better for most people. And you can see what works better for most people if you are using this data-driven approach. I think this is quite exciting. So and can be done only if we basically adopt this data-driven approach. Another key advantage, Simon, is the fact that this data-driven approach allows better planning of services. And obviously, with this comes better allocation of resources. Now, this is particularly important in a sector which is already overstretched in terms of staffing. Providers, through better analysis of their data, can ensure that their resources are used where and when they are needed the most. This is very important for them, especially, as I said, considering the overstretched workforce in this sector. So basically, you're adopting a system that has potential to steer your services based on what works best. So this is what the data-driven approach allows you to do, and I think it's quite exciting, but also critical. Another key advantage that data analytics in general, and obviously data-driven approach, allows you to do is to have access to that real-time data for people working in the sector, therefore allowing them to communicate and collaborate better. So there's an improved communication and collaboration between all stakeholders involved, including various providers, organizations, and agencies, as well as health professionals. This is done through more efficient sharing of information, through information being more easily accessible, through a more timely action on the information that's available to you. And ultimately, you can use this to better coordinate and basically initiate collaborative activities based on evidence that you are receiving from your data and data analytics in general. I think these are some very exciting times ahead. And these times are these advantages are definitely being unlocked by this data-driven approach.
Because there's almost like the macro sector-wide how health and social care gets integrated from a data perspective. That's obviously a really big part of the picture. But if you then zoom in and think about on a service by service perspective, you've then got examples of how the data and being able to analyze that data can improve the quality of care outcomes as well. So I'd be really interested with that kind of mindset of being zoomed in. give me some examples of how data and analyzing that data can improve care outcomes for people living in care services.
Well, I can give you. Let's take the example of this data driven approach in the area of pain management in people living with dementia specifically, which is a very important population group with specific needs, individual needs, and that we need to do more, obviously. As you know, there's a high percentage of people living in dementia in aged care sector, and pain assessment as well as then management for this population group is very challenging because of their compromised ability to self-report their pain. Self-report is the golden standard, but people living with dementia, with moderate and advanced dementia, they are unable to do that. So what this results in is that they experience what's known as behavioral and psychological symptoms of dementia. So these are very challenging behaviors, behaviors such as agitation and aggressiveness, which can also lead to safeguarding and similar issues. But the problem is that because of their compromised ability to self-report pain, in people living with dementia, pain often goes undetected. So pain becomes the underlying cause of these behavioral symptoms, which are often treated with antipsychotics. And because pain is not detected, it obviously goes without treatment. Now, when it comes to data analytics in this context, what we know is that documentation of pain in general in aged care sector is not very good. Based on various studies, such as study by Andrews et al., we know that nearly a third of residents have no documentation of how pain was assessed. Over 20% of pain episodes basically go without an evidence of them having a proper assessment. So pain documentation is an issue. Now, if we come to examples, if we take an example of how this can be addressed, for example, at PainChek, PainChek is an Australian-based company which is now in the UK as well. It has a vision to give voice to people who cannot verbalize pain, and in addition to giving voice, the aim is to also make their pain journey visible through providing this data analytics capability. Now, PainChek is therefore specialized to offer solutions focused around better pain management and subsequent, obviously, assessment and subsequent management. Now, just to briefly explain, PainChek is a point-of-care solution that uses artificial intelligence to detect facial features of pain, which are then combined with non-facial indicators of pain to generate a pain score and pain intensity. It is comprised of three key pillars. So it's the point-of-care application that I just mentioned, and then it's the data analytics and also pain related education that is provided. All of this is done digitally. So because the system, the PainChek system, allows for documents to be stored electronically. It's absolute minimization of paper handling, duplication, and those associated risks. But in addition to point of care app providing pain presence, which is the pain score and pain intensity level, the solution can also unlock the evaluation of a person's pain experience. And I will explain now how can in this regard PainChek do this. But let me just summarize very briefly some current very interesting recent evidence coming out of various leading research studies in this field. We know, for example, at clinical level, we now know that at clinical level, adopting a data-driven approach is critical. This approach can be further, obviously, advanced through creation and utilization of data. it is now very evident that there is a massive potential to leverage this data to better inform clinical practice. Now, a couple of weeks ago, there was an interesting editor's view published in a prestigious Age and Aging, and where specifically it was mentioned how linking various databases together, you can unlock unrecognized patterns in many cases, patterns that you have clinically suspected before, but it was difficult to prove. Now, must emphasize that you can achieve this only through a data-driven approach. And there's more and more evidence in light of this coming out that suggests that pain needs to be individualized. So the management of pain needs to be individualized, but you can only achieve that, Simon, if the assessment of pain is also individual. So when a PainChek assessment is completed, in addition to that pain score and pain level, you also have the information on various comprehensive pain indicators identified in the person. So these would be indicators such as various behaviors, agitation, aggressivity, if the person is crying in pain, if their vocalizations are increasing in pain, if the person has compromised movement issue, if their routine has changed, if they're having sleep problems as well when they're having pain, and so on. So by easily accessing this data through the data analytics, you are basically capturing a person's pain experience. You are basically capturing the pain experience and basically how pain is impacting them. I think this is very, very important, and it can be only achieved by this data-driven approach. We know pain is an individual experience, and through doing a PainChek assessment like this, we are in a position to basically capture that individual experience. For example, we can look at a cohort of people who are hyperactive, and obviously they need a high burden of care. Or also we can look at a cohort of people with low activity who have decreased social interaction. We can only view this data through the data analytics. Someone can have a moderate pain level, but one of them may not have troublesome or challenging behaviors, whereas another person can have moderate pain, but they can also have very challenging behaviors. So you are going to treat them differently, and you're going to individualize their care. And so this is one example of how PainChek provides this pain experience, and it's very important because this allows for clinicians to gain very, very interesting insights. Now, PainChek has also this data analytics capability, which allows providers and clinicians to see all pain assessments at their facility level or organization level. So in addition to seeing various trends of pain assessment, providers and clinicians can also more easily follow best practice guidelines of pain assessment through looking at data and the data analytics portal. So this was previously very difficult to do. It required a lot of effort, a lot of workforce as well. For example, by looking at a pain assessment results chronologically in a patient or in a resident, in this case, providers and clinicians can see the impact of their interventions. If at 2 p.m., for example, there was a result for a person and the result was severe pain, you obviously, according to guidelines, you need to reevaluate that high severe pain score. So you need to reevaluate the person after an hour. So the next result at 3 p.m. should hopefully be a reduced pain score, but you can see this only if the treatment was successful. So you are now seeing all this data, you are analyzing all this data, and you are chronologically able to see if your interventions are having a positive impact or not. This is how clinicians and providers can see at facility level or organization level if their intervention interventions are working or not. And this is critical information for them to coordinate care, to improve care and steer their services according to what works best for their residents. I think this is critical information that is only possible to be unlocked and therefore used through data analytics and through a data-driven approach.
So we've got there that so you've got the different data collection points driven through an AI piece of technology, and then you're saying as well that like you can take a macro view to look at different residents, different pain scores, different services, all that type of stuff, to then look at kind of trends and analysis in that respect. Which I guess without those data points, it's very difficult to be able to make a comparison of one person's experience of pain versus somebody else's experience of pain. With this, you're then able to look at it in a more macro view, but then also look at it in a very micro view relevant to that particular individual. And the ability to kind of zoom in and zoom out and things is you gain different perspective by having those different degrees of whether it's the micro or the macro view as well. So that sounds super important. And I guess I know that PainChek have done various different integrations with different pieces of technology. So you can take that the pain scores and then build those into care planning systems as an example as well. So how those different pieces of technology are working together to then improve people's lives through the data collection, then the analysis of that data as well. So it's really exciting in that respect. I know it feels like we seem to be at a bit of quite a pivotal moment in social care, in as much as the fact there have been lots of different pieces of technology that have been working in silos almost. Like they do a great job of being a point solution, but I think now that a lot of people have been working on open AI so that pieces of software can pass data from one piece of software to another, that then presents almost another really exciting frontier. And that's where we are today. Who knows where we'll be next year or the year after that. Obviously the whole AI conversation at the moment is absolutely huge. What with the kind of rise to fame and stardom of ChatGPT now 4, and it'll be really interesting to see how that all plays out as well. So can you, to round us off, can you share with me a bit of an explanation around some of maybe the emerging trends around data analytics, assistive technology, and how those will play out and impact the care sector?
Yeah, well, here in this context, it's also worth sharing that there was recently another policy paper on a plan for digital health and social care, and I think this is really good. And one of the key messages in that policy paper was the fact that you need to equip the system digitally for better care. So it was fully recognized, and some of the highlights actually was the fact that you need to digitize health and social care records, because at present only about 20% of NHS organizations are so-called digitally mature, and you need to join up health and social care records and so on. But one of the other highlights in this policy paper was the fact that we need to digitally support diagnosis and therefore improve clinical decision and making through trends, for example, like artificial intelligence. This is an ongoing trend. It's very important. Artificial intelligence or artificial intelligence powered solutions are increasingly being used to analyze large amount of data, to identify obviously various patterns, to contribute towards better decision making and so on. But we, in this context, since AI is now a very interesting trend, we must also recognize the limitations as well as what the role of AI is in the context of care. And in this regard, I don't think that AI solves all healthcare problems, including problems of the care sector. And I think if we view the AI as a member of the team rather than a replacement for health professionals, and carers, I think that's a better view and a more realistic expectation, and a better way of leveraging the full potential of AI without replacing the person. And this sort of approach then would allow health professionals to focus more on some of the more humanistic or superpowers, all right, things like critical thinking, for example, that is quite important, communication, collaboration between each other, creativity as well. And I think leveraging AI in the context of supporting health professionals and carers around these sort of human powers, and removing some of the more burdensome activities related to various administrative tasks and so on. I think that's where AI is going to have a massive impact, in addition to facilitating diagnosis of various conditions. So this is a major trend. Then we obviously have the telemedicine and remote monitoring, which includes various video conference-based solutions and solutions that use remote sensors. This has experienced a significant growth in response to COVID-19 pandemic. So I think this will also continue to evolve and expand a lot. Another very important trend is the predictive analytics, or solutions that allow or enable the capability to provide predictive analytics, and therefore, for example, in the context of care, identify services or service users and providers that, for example, might require additional support, which can then enable care providers to deliver early and preventative interventions. I think this is another emerging trend. Obviously, we need to optimize operations with data, and this will be another. I'm confident we will see more developments in this area, especially given challenges with staffing, new resident referrals and funding models and so on. So we should see more solutions and more capabilities in this space as well.
Kreshnik, thank you so much for your time. Insightful as ever. I love the way that you've elaborated on some of the points that we said that we were going to talk about today. So thank you for being the font of knowledge that you are, all things to do with data, particularly in the pain management space. So look, I really appreciate your time. I'm sure we'll get together to create some more content again in the future. But really appreciate your time today. So thank you, Kreshnik.
Thank you, Simon.